Hey guys, it's me, the South African Wanderer, and welcome back to the channel, even though it was me who was gone away for a little while. A little bit of a life update and catch-up video, this one. So I was out in Wakkerstroom for 2 weeks, working as a field assistant, and also managed to get some good birding in, because Wakkerstroom is known for its good birding in the areas surrounding it. That video will follow hopefully shortly on the channel, so look out for it. I managed to actually pass the 550 lifers in South Africa, and eventually ended up, I think, on 553, and got a good bird that is quite rare and is seen in and around Wakkerstroom. So that will probably be the title of the video as well. So look out for that one coming soon. And then almost as soon as I got back, Sony announced the follow-up to the Sony Alpha 1, which is the camera that I shoot with, on Tuesday afternoon. And this video is primarily to talk about, I think, the four things, well, maybe three things, because two are related, that would make me want to consider possibly upgrading to the new Sony A1 Mark II. Sony launched their Sony A1 in January 2021, and it was their flagship camera when it launched. 50 megapixels, shooting at 30 frames per second, 4K 60, 8K 30. So an all-round flagship camera in most senses of the word, and it outshot any of the rival cameras on the market at the time. Since the A1 was launched, I think the rival manufacturers have caught up a little bit. Nikon and Canon have both launched subsequent cameras that have features that almost forced Sony's hand in updating their flagship as well. So if you've watched other videos and followed the launch announcement, you'll know that the A1 II is not so much a innovative leap in terms of the camera, but it's more addressing a few gaps and shortfalls on the Sony A1 that have become more prevalent with the subsequent launch of Nikon and Canon's flagship bodies as well. The Sony A1 II has a few changes that are key, and then also keeps a few things that make the Sony A1 such a great camera body itself. So the sensor remains the same, the frames per second remains the same, but then there's a few features that I think are quite important that have been added that will almost make the Sony A1 II a very compelling camera for anyone looking to either upgrade or looking to get into a flagship, top of the range body. For me, I think the first feature that Sony added to the A1 II that was a must was pre-capture. So Sony added in full raw pre-capture to the Sony A1 II, and you can customize it, I think, anywhere between 0.1 to 1 second of pre-capture. Just quickly on how pre-capture works. You have a button set, either the AF on or the half shutter release, to track focus. And while you have that button pressed, your half shutter release or the AF on pressed in, the camera is continuously recording photos to its buffer. And then as soon as you press the shutter in fully, whatever pre-capture time you had it set for, is then written to your memory card. So, for instance, if you had it set for, let's say, 0.6 of a second, if it's shooting at 30 frames per second, you're going to capture 18 frames before you press the shutter worth of images. And this is important, especially in wildlife and bird photography, for capturing action that you almost had to anticipate in the past. So a bird taking off a stick, for instance, you never truly know when that bird is going to take off. You can gauge from its behavior. For instance, a bird usually poops before it's ready to take off, but that exact moment it's going to take off is, reactionary. You're still going to react to it rather than preempt it. And then what the camera then does is, if for whatever reason you react slowly and you miss the takeoff, for instance, it will have those images before you press the shutter stored, and then you may have a keeper image that you can use that you would have otherwise missed. So I think that's the number one feature that's been added that will make the life of wildlife and bird photographers in particular, so much easier, and help them without needing to anticipate the animal behavior so much anymore. I think the second and the third additions that I think make a compelling reason to buy the A1 II is the autofocus improvements they've made on the camera. So the Sony A1 is already a beast when it comes to autofocus tracking, but what Sony have done is they've added a AI chip into the Sony A7 R5 and then into the Sony A9 III that actually almost predicts where a subject is going to move into a frame and is almost continuously learning while you're shooting so that it can better autofocus, when you're out in the field. So that AI autofocus chip does a couple of things. It obviously helps improve the autofocus and things like the eye autofocus, which now becomes automatic. So previously, where you had to change between human, animal, and bird eye, the camera now has a automatic eye autofocus pickup that the other cameras like Canon and Nikon may have already had even before the A1 was launched. So Sony has improved their autofocus in that way. And it makes autofocus faster when you are using eye autofocus. They quote something like 50% improvement in the pickup on the autofocus. So, half the time that it took previously. So what that AI autofocus chip also does is now, for the first time, allows eye autofocus in video for birds and animals. So previously the A1 could only do eye autofocus for humans in video and subject tracking with the eye autofocus, but now it actually can do it with birds and animals as well. And one of the frustrations I've actually experienced in the field, and I think PJ has also experienced while shooting with my A1, is that when you are doing video, that lack of bird eye autofocus actually is quite frustrating out in the field, because what the camera can then do is jump off the subject, and it causes you to almost lose focus on your subject. And in a couple of the shots and some of the videos I did, you can actually go back and see that where I've lost autofocus in those videos. And for me, that's a massive improvement. But the question for me in terms of the current body, the Sony A1, is why they couldn't implement even rudimentary eye autofocus for birds and animals in this body. They do it with the Sony A7 IV, which also does not have a AI autofocus chip. So that argument that maybe the AI chip is maybe required for that to happen sort of falls away if you think that they've implemented it in the Sony A7 IV, which doesn't have that chip. And then what the dedicated autofocus chip does is it frees up processing capability on the two Bions processors that the camera does have. So maybe it'll improve, other things while you're shooting as well. Things that need processing power, such as if you're shooting auto white balance or you're shooting auto ISO, and it may then improve how quickly the camera then responds to changes in your lighting or your color space in a photo. So the autofocus being automatic for eye autofocus and then having video eye autofocus, I think is items 2 and 3, but can be lumped together as autofocus improvements, I guess. I think the last thing that for me is a bit of a game changer is the screen on the back of the A1. So as you can see, the screen on the A1 just folds out like that, and it doesn't have the ability to flip out this way, like even my A7C has. So I'm filming with the A7C at the moment, and I can see myself on the screen because the screen flips out in this direction. And then when you're vlogging, you can basically see yourself and see, what's happening with the camera, how many minutes you've done. It's already a long video for me. But yeah, it's one thing that the A1 didn't have. You can only move it in this direction. And, in addition to just the photography where, yes, this works in low angle. So if you think about, you're shooting very low angle and your camera is below you and you're looking at the screen from the bottom, or, if you've got your camera higher and you're looking at the screen from that angle for some reason, then it works. But as soon as you flip into vertical, that screen, does not help you if you're very low angle, because what is the point of actually having it out like that in vertical, because it's not improving the screen visibility in any way. And I actually felt this last week. I think I was shooting black-winged lapwings and needed to get a very low angle vertical shot, and there was no screen. So yeah, I was basically lying down trying to get my eye to the eyepiece to try and get those shots framed properly. And with the 200, 600 and a lot of wind, it proved very difficult to actually, get that done. And I defaulted to doing just horizontal shots and being happy with the fact that I can then crop vertically or square if I need to in post. But that screen improvement, even though it seems like a small one, I think will be a big one for me, because even when this camera was launched, I mean, like I say, my A7C has that flippy, tilty screen. So even when this camera was launched, it was something that was missing on the back of the camera. I think they've also improved the quality of the screen, so we'll have to see that as well. There are other things that frustrate me with my A1, like the location of the video button, which is here, And out in the field, when you've got your eye up to the camera, finding that button is sometimes more difficult because it's tiny and not placed very well. So hopefully they got a button on the top, like my A7C has, closer to the shutter button, that can be used to start your video. And hopefully they've also incorporated a video and still switch like the A7 IV has, where you can just switch between video and stills quite easily, and you can have your video settings which are different than your still settings, which would then make life easier. Then you don't have to take your eye off the EVF. I think the EVF remains the same, but what they've done is also included a couple eyepieces now. So they've included a second eyepiece that comes in the box, and will make shooting a bit easier from what I've seen. And then, yeah, they've made other improvements as well. They've made the body more like the A9 body, so the ergonomics are different. But for me, I'm fine because I've got smaller fingers and the ergonomics really don't play so much of a role. They've got a boost button, a C5 button, but it boosts to 30 frames per second. So I don't see, how that will be used out in the field. Oh, the other thing is that it will retail cheaper than the A1 retailed when it was launched. But the A1 was also launched in the middle of a chip crisis, and the chip prices were high and may have led to that $6,500 price mark. I think the A1 II will launch at $6,200 or thereabouts. So a little bit cheaper, but with translation effects, more expensive, because in South Africa, it's going to launch at 144,999 rand. So 145,000. So for now, I'm going to probably stick with my A1 because, as you would say in Tamil, panno ille, or there's no money for upgrade at the moment. But maybe in a year's time, when the price on the A1 II does come down and maybe there's a few second-hand bodies in the market, I can probably look to see if then I need to upgrade. But there are a few compelling reasons that would make me want to upgrade as well. So yeah, that's my spiel on the announcement for the A1 II. Hopefully you find this video informative, and don't forget that the video from Wackerstroom will be uploading soon, hopefully. It just depends on how quickly I can edit my photos for that video. But thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.